Good evening. It is Monday, November 7th, 2022. This is the Kearney Board of Aldermen meeting. Call the meeting to order. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Matt. Shirley, you got a chance to take roll?
I have taken roll. Everybody is present and you have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next top item on the agenda, personal appearances.
Shauna Searcy is here tonight, the Executive Director of Kearney Area Development Council, to give us her annual report.
That 3/4 of them already heard. You guys are cheaters. I'm getting cold. So if I sound like I'm having a hard time swallowing, it's because I am. Okay, so before I jump into KEDC, I do want to spend just a couple minutes talking about the Community Foundation. So as a reminder, I guess, right? One executive director, one board of volunteers, two sister organizations. Of course, KEDC, but also the Kearney Community Foundation. So Senior Center on Meals on Wheels and the taxi service for seniors have always been ours. And I think we were created almost simultaneously, if not in short order of each other. Both organizations. So, and it has just grown and, grown and grown until this beautiful thing. And Kathy Miner is exceptional, and Shirley Zimmerman is exceptional as our senior board president. Clay County Senior Services. The city does not fund these programs, right? This is Clay County entirely funded these programs that we offer. And then our army of volunteers who are so great. So anyway, a couple of years ago, we started having conversations with the Enrichment Council about partnering with them because they have two ladies who are also dedicated entirely into the enrichment of seniors. So we are essential needs in their enrichment. And so sort of the interim preliminary partnership was that they moved into our building. So it became like a one-stop shop truly for our seniors. You can get any and all of the things in one building. And I think it's gone very, very well. Hopefully Shirley would agree with me. And so through that partnership, it has been decided that the Kearney Enrichment Council will be taking over our senior programming starting in January. So Kurt applied for those Clay County dollars this year, and they will officially belong to the Enrichment Council starting in January. So I think I can speak for Shirley and myself. I would not have loosened the reins on this if I didn't truly think this was the right decision. I know Shirley wouldn't either. We would just not allow this to happen. I think it's going to be the best thing for our seniors, for the staff, for everybody. So it's a little weird that this will be the last time talking to you about our senior programming. I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that. So does anybody have questions about that before I jump to KDC? Talk about all the things that are here. Okay. So KDC, I'm skipping a couple of the slides. I sort of rotate in and out this year, but because okay. So just to cover a little bit of, I guess it's not a little bit, it's a pretty high level summary of what we do. I would say every piece of this right now, business support is probably one of my least favorite terms in the world, probably closely followed by economic development, simply because they're so varied and all encompassing terms. But of course, business support, I would say data is a lot more common, pulling data for businesses than you might think that I do. Probably 4 or 5 real estate conversations right now. Attraction, always attraction, business retention, behind you, innovation business park, of course, I'll get to that. So this is actually pretty good summary of how I spend a lot of my time. So we can keep going. Okay, so the first 2 pieces of this is real estate. So when I say like a local real estate lead, what I'm referring to is it's landowners and brokers, and then it's also when Dave Pavlich gets real estate calls, they come, Stacy Bratcher gets real estate calls. So that's what I mean when I say local real estate specific needs. That's about how many I received this past year. And then the larger users, these are the huge tracts of land and huge buildings for the majority. Not all of them, but usually we're talking about hundreds of acres in hundreds of square foot buildings, right? But I received 57 of those. This year. And so while I have only been able to pursue 5 of those this year, but I truly don't think that is a waste. Like the trends, are there certain industries looking at the Midwest? And is there a trend on how much land they need, or how big the buildings have to be, or does it have to be rail? I mean, those trends are still quite valuable, I think, to have, should the city ever wish to move forward with further industrial development. So I do get a lot of those leads, but again, those aren't ones I can pursue significantly often. Businesses assisted, that is, let's say Eric Marshall, right, is a business owner and he has one question. Okay, if it's a phone call, I didn't count that. But if it's perhaps one question, I need to follow up by email, that is one assist. And then if it is same guy, but doesn't want to misstep and has lots of questions and perhaps wants to grow, right, and phase it out. And so I could spend weeks or months with that person, one. So I put the number 87 together of the types of businesses that I assisted that are more than a phone call or two. And then leadership, my board, Kathy has to hear about this a lot. And it is what it is, because it's where I spend a lot of my time. So I think a lot of us have our own spaces in which we represent the city, right? Like MML president, of course, Jerry on the city side, I know the mayor. I mean, we all have our spaces that I think we represent this community quite well. Of course, I work within the economic development space, right? So the president of the Missouri EDC, thank you, you've highlighted that before, so thank you, Mayor. But also I'm on the Northland CAPS board, which is important. Workforce is critically important. Clay County EDC, KCEDC, there's a whole host of acronyms that mean nothing to you. And then I would also say the school district, fire district, the city, they are our partners, right? We are like this network structure that I feel like we all have to support each other and make this stuff come to pass. So I do spend a lot of my time on partner work. But I think, I'll be honest with you, most people didn't necessarily know much about our town. A few years ago, at least, well, yeah. And so I think they've learned a lot about Kearney in the past few years because of those efforts. So I think it's worth it. It's a lot of time, but it's worth it. This cold, I almost decided to zoom in. Didn't actually. Okay, we've always called this fourth phase, right, of Innovation Business Park. It finally happened, which I am very excited about. So we constructed 8 new lots. So 12.5 acres that we split into 8 new lots. And I would say our previous lots were too big. I don't know when exactly when the last stage of development happened, but 2 to 3 acres is a pretty large piece of land for local businesses for the most part. It's a lot of land, so it slows sales and leads to lot splits. So we got all those sold up. These are smaller. These are all below 2 acres in size. And I would tell you, I would be willing to say that this is maybe at least a 60% business retention project. Because while I do get plenty of attraction calls, everybody seems to want 10 to 25,000 square foot buildings, and we just don't have them. And so they come from everywhere, but I will tell you, a lot of them are local businesses, and they are trying to stay here. They want to grow here, and they have nowhere to go. So that is who we are. Those are our users, right? And so I think that is who a lot of our buyers will be as well. I guess I don't know that. You can see the cost. I won't read this stuff to you. Our development loan covers the vast majority of that cost. And of course, the use that we do have, should the lots not sell at a rate we need them to sell at, then of course we have that partnership with the city to make sure the loan interest rate is there. So, interest carry, I should say, not interest rate. Okay, so just for visualization, the phase 4 is at southern 12.5 acres. So it's a road and utility extension. And then just to the north, that 15 acres will be all that's left of Innovation Business Park. And so in its entirety, it is a developed tract. If someone needs it, wants it, call me tomorrow, you can call. But if, assuming it doesn't sell before that, whatever our trigger is on phase 4, forgive me, I don't know exactly what the dollar amount trigger will be, but we'll look to phase 5. We'll immediately jump to starting to work on it if it doesn't sell first. Thanks, dude. I know, I'm digging in, but I just, this is the actual final plat. So you can see those southern lots are little, right? There's 4 1-acre lots in there. And then even our largest is just 1.86 acres. So price varies depending upon size and a little bit of easements and that sort of thing. But these smaller lots have been the one I received the most inquiries about so far. Okay, housing, this is city data. So 60 permits, $21 million. That is, it's laughable almost, but no one has to be told why that number is so high, right? It's our economy. The other one, there's an organization called Home Snacks. They rank, I think they have a bunch of rankings. One of them happens to be fastest growing cities in the state. And I'd have to go back. We may have always been on that list since I took this position. So I will say, however, that is the number that they use, is not the number that I would use. But I mean, 2020, people are no longer knocking on your front door, harassing you and calling your phone and just harassing you, telling you to fill out that form anymore, right? And it was a pandemic. So that is the number they used. I think a little over 11,000 is more accurate, but I can use different numbers in certain ways. I can use projections in some places, and in some ways I have to use this 10,460. So yeah. This I will not read to you. I guess the top number, just in case you haven't glanced at it, this week, 44 permits, $7.5 million. Hopefully we can keep going. You know your notable wins. Okay, I know, taxes and plats. I know how not interesting this is to a lot of people, but it's critically interesting. So real estate values, this is assessed valuation growth. So fire districts, right? This is where all their money comes from. All their money, right, Jeff? Yep. And so, and of course, school district. So very important to them. So this is fire district data. So real estate, that is ag, that is commercial, and that is residential all put together. 3.6% growth rate. And then personal property, 25.7% growth. And then adjusted total valuation, 13.5%. So critically important to the economic health of this community, right? And sometimes people are actually a little bit surprised to see these numbers. Like I actually spoke to some students last week, and they were a little surprised to hear these numbers. So worthy of sharing. Okay, so this is something for me too, but like, don't look behind you, you're not going that way. So you can glance in your rearview mirror, right? Like we have to recognize our wins. There have been a lot of them, frankly. We can harp on about it next year, I guess. And probably recognize our challenges and fails too, right? As a community, like don't turn all the way behind you, right? Because we have more work to do. So imminently, gotta sell some lots now, and then look to phase 5 and sell that off. Imminent, obviously, imminent plans and projects. Past that, it gets bigger and it gets harder, right? So fleshing out conversations and beliefs that have a lot to do with what your priorities want to be moving forward. Would you like a business park or not? Is there a different way you want to invest in economic development dollars, right? Is it infrastructure, is it workforce, is it property, is it any and all the things that the city decides is important to you? So fleshing out those conversations further. Mayor's been great. I've already had a brief but great conversation with Sheila already about that as well. So they're big conversations, hard conversations that I think will be a lot of fun to keep fleshing out. I think that's it. Is that it? I don't know. Okay. Some of my slides kept disappearing and reappearing. So these are partners. Thank you. You know, really, we are created by you, right? By the city. Thank you for your continued support, your continued funding, and also for your continued allowance for me to rely on Shirley Zimmerman and Dave Pavlich on so many things. They are my favorite coworkers. They're my only coworkers. And in school district and fire district, they are actually also a funding partner. They do provide some funding to the KDC as well. These are the guys that I work with, the guys I serve, the guys I work with. So, and then we do have, of course, a host of business investor members, I should remind you, at different levels of investment. as well. So I know I rambled on a lot. What questions can I answer?
Shauna, are
Yes.
any in phase 4, are any of those lots under contract or sold, or do you have any interested parties?
No. One of them, no. I'm having a conversation with somebody this week, 2 people actually. One is significantly more likely than the other, but nothing is moving.
Okay.
That changed, as I'm sure you know, it changed at one point. So not currently. Anything else?
Any questions from the board for Shauna?
It was equally as riveting.
It's so fascinating.
It
I mean,
is.
Randy could have probably, said that I have and say it later. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your report, Shauna.
I'm good.
Mr. Scholl, did you have anything specific while we're still under public, personal appearances?
No, I had just submitted the information to the group, and I just wanted to follow up and see if there were any questions or any additional information that was needed on the matter.
For fireworks.
Fireworks. If I'm here, generally for fireworks.
Okay, I'm just making sure. We actually are going to be cutting your check, and you will be able to pick it up tomorrow. It's all good. It was under the $7,500 requirement for board approval. It was already in the budget, and so it's already a done deal.
Eventually, we get this right, don't we?
Yeah.
That would be great, and I'll try and come by either tomorrow or possibly Wednesday. But I'm excited about it. We've always had good reviews. The one disappointment is none of the members of the Board of Aldermen ever come over and help me shoot the fireworks off. It's a standing invitation if you'd like to do it this year as well.
But I did watch yours. I was over with Lisa Cheeseborough over at the villas watching, so I did watch your show.
I was in his yard when he shot him off earlier, so.
There's something about the earth moving under your feet.
Yeah.
And you'll get us that certificate of insurance with the school and everything?
Yeah, they'll go ahead and prepare it. It'll be closer to the actual
Yeah.
date, and I'll make sure that you get that before
Perfect.
then.
And then I'll forward that on to the school as well.
That'd be great.
Appreciate it.
Sincerely appreciate your continued, sorry, I'm extremely
The
jet lagged this
service
morning.
that
You're-
you do,
yeah.
so many people in our community. appreciate
Continually
it.
to be our local pyro expert and providing some good fireworks for our Christmas parade.
I find it a very, very enjoyable experience. I've got some good volunteers who love to do it as well. So hopefully we're establishing a tradition that we can do for many, many years.
The picture we provided you last year, I think, kind of hits home for me, and that's why we do it. I mean, it's a
And I
beautiful
went home
picture.
Directly and hung it in my little home
Yeah.
office. So it's-
Well, we appreciate you, sir. Thank
Thank
you.
you very, very
Yeah.
much.
Very much.
We'll move on to the consent agenda this evening. Any questions or items of discussion on the consent agenda from the board? Now, can we entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda passes. Move on to ordinances.
So this item is an ordinance that is approving the intergovernmental agreement with Mid-America Regional Council to provide the household hazardous waste collection program. And we do this each year and have been doing it for a long time. And this would just be renewing the agreement for next year.
Any questions from the board? If you could read the proposed ordinance, first reading by title only, please.
An ordinance approving the 2023 intergovernmental agreement between the Mark Solid Waste Management District and Kearney, Missouri, relating to the Regional Household Hazardous Waste Collection Program in the amount of $11,815.10.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Second reading by title only, please.
An ordinance approving the 2023 intergovernmental agreement between the Mark Solid Waste Management District and Kearney, Missouri, relating to the Regional Household Hazardous Waste Collection Program in the amount of $11,815.10.
Move to approve on second reading.
I'll second that.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Pull the board.
Alderman Lehman,
Aye.
Alderwoman Barger,
Aye.
Alderman Holt,
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Unanimous.
We'll move on to resolutions.
So this resolution is a proposed amendment to the city's personnel policy. It has several different items in it, and so I would like to just kind of give you a highlight of the items, and then we can talk about anything that you have specific questions on. But basically, the first change would be removing the defined work schedules. There's a definition of work schedules in the personnel policy now. This would actually allow more flexibility with scheduling and allow the police chief to implement 12-hour shifts schedules for our patrol officers. Additionally, we would redefine vacation earnings in hours instead of in days. So currently they say a day. Well, we have so many different employees working different hours. It would be more equitable to define that in hours. Also adding Juneteenth and Columbus Day to the city's holiday schedule. Currently there's no postal service. There is no banking service on those days, and there are also federal, state, and county holidays. And so there's a proposal to change and add Juneteenth and Columbus Day. Also, allowing any employee who is required to work on a city holiday to take another day off. And then specifically for police officers, giving them their holiday time at the beginning of each calendar year so that they can schedule those hours as vacation during that same calendar year, because they are working 24/7, 365 days a year. We always have to have somebody covering a shift. This will give them the flexibility to be able to take advantage of all of their holiday pay and also allow them to have the same holiday hour benefit that other employees in the city have. The next change would be adopting a reimbursement schedule for employees who have training or tuition paid on their behalf by the city if they leave within 3 years. And this wouldn't be for basic normal training. This is talking about if you have college tuition, or if we are paying and sending an officer to the police academy. If they don't stay with us for 3 years, then we would prorate the schedule and they would pay a portion back. My hope is that after they've been here for 3 years, they'll fall in love with us and never leave. So I think that if we can get them to stay for a period of time, they really, it's a great place to work and they won't want to leave. And so that's the hope with that. Additionally, adopting a sick leave incentive program. So right now, I don't want to discourage anyone from using sick time when they need to, but I also want to reward employees for taking care of themselves and for being healthy. And so this proposes if an employee uses 24 hours or less sick time in a calendar year, the following year they would get a bonus vacation day. So nothing would be taken away from any employee, but it would be an incentive if somebody was able to be healthy and encourage them to continue taking care of their health. And then there are a lot of changes. Defining the FLSA period for employees that are working 12-hour shifts. So FLSA allows when we have law enforcement officers that if they are working different shifts than other people, their FLSA period can be different than just a 7-day period. And so this is proposing that for any officers that are working a 12-hour shift, their FLSA period would be 14 days, and they would get paid overtime differently than an employee that was working 40-hour work weeks. And that's because they would be working 2 days, 2 12-hour shifts one week, and I believe 5 the next calendar week. And so we look at the 14-day period instead of the 7-day period. And finally, there is a provision in there to adopt emergency callback pay. So how this would work is if an employee was called back unexpectedly after they had left for the evening, and we called them back for an emergency, they would be paid time and a half, no matter how many hours they had worked during the pay period for the time that they were working, and a minimum of 2 hours. So if somebody, a citizen, called because they have water pouring out of their yard, it's on their side of the meter, we need to call in a utility worker to come in and turn off the meter for them, and it takes them 20 minutes, they would get paid for 2 hours of work at time and a half. And so I would be, that's a lot, I know, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
I believe the interim administrators already spoke to us individually on a lot of this, but does the board have any questions or comments on the proposed changes to the proposed resolution amending the personnel policy for the city? Okay. If there are no questions, can we entertain a motion approving the resolution amending the personnel policy for the city of Kearney, Missouri?
Motion to approve.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Thank you. Move on to mayor's remarks, communications. First of all, we have 2 of our police officers with us this evening. Officer Parker, would you mind introducing our newest police officer to the board?
So this is Officer Caleb Nelson. He started with us about 2 weeks ago or so now. I'm his training officer. I brought him up to the board meeting so he can meet everybody, and then it would be that we would be doing it live.
Yeah, you weren't aware of that, but you did a good job, Officer Parker. So welcome. We're he a friendly face. He previously worked for a local sheriff's department, but we're happy to have him here, and hopefully you're here for a long and rewarding career. So welcome.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
You have an interesting first day. I did.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, what a first day.
I appreciate you giving me a ride back.
Anytime.
Other item under mayor's communication is just want to remind everybody that tomorrow is November 8th and it is our general election. So if you have not had the opportunity to go to the Clay County Election Board's website, it's extremely important to vote, but it's even more important to be an educated voter. So you can go to the election board's website and look at your sample ballot. And I encourage you to research and be an educated voter. So that concludes mayor's communications. We'll move on to the city administrator report.
So the first item is short and sweet, just reminding everybody that the next regular board meeting will be November 21st at 6:30 p.m. The next item I'd like to talk about is the animal control / code enforcement officer. There is $100,000 in the use tax budget. $60,000 of that is for equipment and $40,000 is budgeted for salary and benefits. What I would like to do is advertise for a full-time employee that would be in the community development department. And this position would handle and be responsible for enforcing the city's animal care and property maintenance code laws. Right now, it's kind of shared by police and by the street department. And having a full-time individual would help take the stress and some of that load off of both the street and the police department.
So this is a position that, when you say property maintenance, you're not talking about necessarily building codes enforcement. You're talking
No.
about grass is too long.
Yes,
You need to, you've got
Chickens
to,
in the backyard.
yeah, those kinds of things.
yes,
Okay.
junk, trash, and debris, nuisances.
Okay.
Two positions that we've needed for many years, in my opinion.
And we might find out that we need to have more than one, but right now, just to start out, kind of combine those two positions and see what the call volume is, and then watch as revenues from the use tax possibly grow and see if we can, if there's a need add in future years.
Any other questions or concerns with the update on that position?
The only thing that came to my mind, and I talked about it in our meeting, was when we went to the voters for the use tax, we talked about an animal control officer. We never mentioned that this was a split position. Do we see any issues with the fact that we went to the voters saying that we were gonna hire a full-time animal control officer, and now we're talking about splitting the position into a animal control officer and a property maintenance officer, which are not like positions, I'll put it that way. So
It's my opinion, and I would like you to share your thought as well. That currently Kearney, we need an animal control officer, but they'll definitely have time to do other things. And another need we have is code enforcement. So we're still fulfilling the purpose that we told voters we would with this funding. But I see what you're saying as far as how that could be perceived.
that was my only concern, was that, when we went to the voters with the use tax, we talked about it being a full-time animal control officer, and now we're talking about splitting the position. So if nobody else sees a problem with it, I agree, we need a property maintenance officer, and we need an animal control officer. So how,
And I don't think it's uncommon in smaller municipalities like Kearney and quite frankly, smaller businesses for people to wear many hats. That's how we get things done. Go ahead.
I do, the priority will be animal control, filling in with the code enforcement as time allows. I do not believe that currently with the call volume that we would have enough to keep an individual busy with just animal control. And so it really was an idea to just kind of marry the two together right now. Like I said, we might find out that the volume
right,
grows and we might have to look in future budgets to do something like that. I do feel like they're similar in one way. Both of them, they're always looking at enforcing the city's code of ordinances. And so whether you're enforcing animal control code of ordinances or you're enforcing property maintenance code, it's going to need to be somebody that can interpret and read the city's code and then make sure people are following it. And so, yes, different in a way, but also similar in a way. And because I'm not quite sure that we would be able to keep somebody busy 40 hours a week with the animal control, and we have the position budgeted for a full-time position, and I hear what you were saying about what we told the voters, which is exactly why I didn't just post the position, and I'm asking for your feedback tonight.
So I would assume that whoever this person is, regardless of whether they're in the animal control, wearing the animal control hat or the property maintenance hat, that they have to be officers of the court in order to be able to write tickets for animal violations or property maintenance violations. How's that
I
gonna
believe they
work?
would just write general summons, not a citation.
Correct, they are general order summons, but they are tickets that are brought to court. So I just want to make sure that we've thought about how that works as far as, it's not uncommon for a person who works in the community development department to be an officer of the court. It's just, as well as an animal control officer being an officer of the court, so.
If the board is interested in me pursuing it, then we will take a look at the code of ordinances, and if there are any changes that need to be brought before you, we will absolutely do that and think that through.
Okay. That would be my only concern, because I know in my position, in where I'm at now and in other municipalities, I am an officer of the court and if I write a ticket, I have to show up in court.
Mhm.
So just want to make sure that we've thought about that too, so.
Any other questions or discussion on this topic? So can we give the interim administrator our consensus to move forward with posting the position?
I think it's a good idea, yeah.
Okay.
It's budgeted, so.
And before I post it, we'll definitely take a look and see if there are any code changes that need to be done and review that first. And if there are, we would bring the code changes to you. And if not, we'll go ahead and post it. The next item, I just want to bring to everybody's attention and point out, especially for the public, that we're making some accounts payable changes to both strengthen internal controls and increase efficiency. And so one of those changes actually already occurred tonight on the consent agenda. We are going to start processing accounts payable checks weekly, and the board will receive at each month a warrant report of all the invoices that were paid the prior month. And then you'll make a motion instead of to approve the bills will have already been paid. And so you will just make a motion to approve the report that you received. And then this change will allow us to take advantage of timely payment discounts. It will allow the city to pay contract laborers more quickly. One of the things that I heard is that sometimes we have a difficult time hiring contractors because there can be so much lag time between when they work and when they actually get paid. So this should help with that. And that's what I have for that. And then the last item I want to talk about is switching from the current semi-monthly pay schedule for payroll to paying in arrears and biweekly. So currently the city pays employees on a semi-monthly schedule, and they are paid for hours worked up through the actual check date. So if you get paid on the 15th, you are paid from the time you worked from the 1st through the 15th. That current practice creates a few inefficiencies and some weaknesses. So paying employees current requires that we submit payroll several days prior to the end of each pay period. So that means that employees are often paid for time they didn't work. And if someone gets sick or terminates their employment with the city, it also means that an employee may be getting paid for time that they didn't actually work. if an employee works overtime, they might not get paid until a future pay date, so several weeks later. This practice of having to true up and recalculate payroll each pay period creates confusion for employees and triple the work for the finance department. I say triple the work because every payroll has to be calculated twice, and the amount of time spent answering questions due to the confusion of employees who have gotten paid also adds more inefficiencies. So paying employees semi-monthly and paying employees semi-monthly instead of bi-weekly causes other issues because a pay period can oftentimes have multiple FLSA periods involved. So when you pay semi-monthly, you're not in a calendar week. Instead, you could be paying in the middle, and you still would have the issue of employees not getting paid for overtime until maybe 3 weeks after they actually worked for that overtime. So what I'm proposing is that since our FLSA periods are 7 days for all employees other than police officers working 12-hour shifts, because they are going to be a 14-day FLSA period, that we switch to paying bi-weekly every other Friday to correct the inefficiencies and the weaknesses. I believe that we could begin paying with a little bit of notice to employees starting in calendar year 2023. They would get paid on December 30th, which would be their last semi-annually, and then again on January 13th, and then every other Friday after that. The pay period would begin for the pay date on January 13th, would begin on December 25th and end January 7th. Now, when I was looking at this, because the city is currently paying current, to correct this and switch to paying in arrears and bi-weekly, employees would be required to receive a short check on December 30th. And I don't know that that's a great idea to do right around Christmas for employees. And so I was brainstorming and trying to figure out what we might be able to do. And I came up with a proposal, if you guys are interested in pursuing it. But I propose that the board appropriates ARPA funds to provide 40 hours of premium pay to city employees on December 30th. And it's an allowable use of ARPA funds. And what that would do is it would make it seamless for the employees and correct the city's problem of paying current and semi-monthly. I did calculate the amount. It would be for all the employees that are currently on payroll. It's almost $50,000. It's $49,800. And we have ARPA funds available. And I think that would be a good use of ARPA funds. And I would love to hear feedback or comments or questions.
So essentially, that last paycheck of the year, they're getting a free 40 hours.
Yes, they would get premium pay for 40 hours of
Right.
premium pay.
A week's pay free, basically, so that we can go to the new type.
I don't disagree. This is something we need to correct. I'm not an expert on payroll by any means, but did you perhaps consult with city council on the appropriation of ARPA funding for this purpose?
I let people know that I was going to be proposing it, and I just wanted everybody to have some time to think about it.
Okay.
And now, I definitely believe that if we're not going to do ARPA fund, there needs to be a much longer period of time and communication for employees, because employees will have to plan.
And have you verified that ARPA fund, this is an allowable use for
It
ARPA?
is.
Okay.
I asked the city attorney and have gotten confirmation that this is an allowable use for ARPA funds. It's eligible, and I would not have brought it to you if I had not done that.
Do we have any part-time employees?
We do. They will not. They do not suffer from this issue
Okay, so
like
this is
this.
only
This
the
is
full-time.
only
Okay.
full-time employees.
Okay.
And I do appreciate you looking at ways to, I mean, the last thing I'd want to do is for us to change our payroll schedule to be more efficient. And I would hate that to adversely affect any of our employees, let alone the end of the year.
Yeah, especially at the holidays. I think this is a good solution. It rectifies that monthly issue with people getting paid more than they deserve, perhaps, on a more often basis.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't realize that that's how our payroll was processed.
Yeah, that's.
And for us to process a payroll in advance when people could or could not work is interesting, in my opinion, to say the least. But I guess I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but would anybody entertain a motion to approve?
Well,
Are you not ready for that?
I will bring it to
Okay.
you guys in writing, like another amended personnel policy next time, but just to change that part. So you would just pass a resolution
Okay.
next time, and I would want to have something in that resolution also stating that we were appropriating ARPA funds and obligating them for this purpose.
And that will give you enough time to make the switch, even if we do it on the 21st.
Yes, it absolutely will. It will, because I feel like employees won't be negatively impacted.
Right.
If employees were going to be negatively impacted, I would want a lot more
Right.
a lot more time to be able to communicate it and work with them so that they could plan.
Because the city uses a company that pays,
Paycor.
Okay.
Yes.
and so that's enough time to get the money switched over and all that.
Yes, I will be directing them to do that.
Okay.
Yes.
So nothing else would adversely affect our employees besides this one-time switch, which we're going to mitigate with the premium pay. Okay.
Yes.
I believe that concludes the administrator's report. We'll move on to Alderman discussion. Alderman Barger.
I would just like to add my 2 cents to what you said. Please take time to be educated and to vote tomorrow if you haven't already. And we'll see you at the polls.
Alderman Lehman.
Just like to tag along on what Alderman Barger said. Tomorrow's election day, and it's an important day in our country, so everybody get out and vote.
Alderman Holt.
I just want to say how proud I was of our community when our girls came home and our police brought them down the street. Fire station was with them, and the kids on the bus. They got a good warm welcome from the people of this town. That's what makes America cool. It's really neat when our kids work hard and play, and our girls went out there and won a championship. When they came home, they knew that the people in this town appreciated what they did to represent them. And I just thought it was really cool to be a part of that. My wife and I, we went up and cheered them on. And we weren't alone. There was a lot of people out there, and I thought that was really, really cool.
Alderman Spencer.
I would like to bring up the topic of solar panels and solar collectors this evening. I firmly believe that solar energy is an environmentally sound and economically viable source of energy that can be utilized around the year. I'm pleased that we are seeing more of it in use every year. Recently, the end of June this year, state legislation bill SB 820 was passed that would prevent HOAs from banning the installation and use of solar panels. This new bill will go into effect on January 1st of this year. Next year, 2023. Here in Kearney, we do not ban solar panels, and we have ordinances from 2016 that Mark, Mid-America Regional Council, assisted us with regarding solar energy systems. However, I would like us to look at them again 6 years later now, because we want to be and we need to be proactive with the changes that are coming our way. So I would like to review and perhaps edit our ordinances regarding guidelines for installing solar panels as to where and how solar panels can be installed. Solar arrays and systems are very intricate devices that should not be disturbed once they are installed and put up. So having guidance on the books upfront as to placement is obviously best for our homeowners. We currently allow panels to be both on the roof and on the ground, mounted on all 4 sides of our home and our yards. I am proposing that we only allow them to be on the 2 sides and the rear of both the home and the ground. I understand that some homes are oriented so that the best side to use solar is on the front. If you need solar on the front side, the side facing the street, I believe they should either be solar shingles or panels with special solar skins on them. These so-called solar skins allow solar panels to blend in with the roof without compromising energy production. This technology is newer. It is so flexible that panels can be made to match your existing roof, be it clay tiles, asphalt shingles, or even vintage shake shingles, so that your roof looks seamless. And solar shingles, another option, are exactly as they sound, a shingle with the capabilities the same as a panel, with only about 10% less energy production overall than panels. I think this would be a win for Kearney. It is hard to imagine your neighbor removing their front landscaping to install ground-mounted solar panels across their front lawn, or perhaps choosing the large silver reflective type of panels for across their front roof line. But it could happen. Some options are much less appealing than others. This may also help us coexist in our community with our neighbors with as little friction as possible. Lastly, the 2 main functions or reasons for having standards and guidelines in a community are to help maintain both property values and aesthetic levels, not just in a few neighborhoods, but in all of our neighborhoods. I have already had people reaching out to me as I am on the HOA in my neighborhood regarding solar panels. I am hoping that we can ask city staff to look into this and to bring back some recommendations that will help us to be ready for more solar panel installations come the first of the year, while we are also looking out for our community, our neighborhoods, and especially our friends and neighbors that don't have strong HOAs to help with this transition. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Any feedback from the board or staff?
We would be happy if the board wants us to go ahead and look to see what other communities are doing and kind of bring back some possible recommendations for the board to consider.
I think the biggest thing that needs to be looked at, if we're gonna adopt new codes, the building codes will address where the panels can go, the fire code and specific as far as where they can go, as far as a firefighter protection area on roofs. So as far as the city adopting code, a ordinance above what the building code will say, I think can get us into some trouble. So I would
Yeah.
encourage the city to look at the building codes first.
We don't currently have a lot of solar panels in our community, and I think part of it is HOAs have been able to ban them. That's soon going to go away. At least my experience on the commercial side of solar panels is the customers that I have that have installed them, it's not been economically viable to do so. They get sold a bill of goods and a program that's supposed to save them thousands of dollars, and it never does. So I'm hopeful, Jerry. I appreciate you spending some time and research on this. I know it's a hot topic at MML. I would be okay with staff spending some time and looking at maybe some opportunities to look at changing our ordinances as well. So if
Thank you.
Mr. Dan, do you have anything to add to that?
No.
Okay, we'll move on to an executive session. We do have a closed session notice this evening, per RSMO 610021 subsection 1 for legal actions causing of action or litigation involving a public governmental body and any confidential or privileged communication between a public governmental body or its representatives and its attorneys, in 610021 subsection 2, leasing, purchase, or sale of real estate by a public governmental body where public knowledge of the transaction might adversely affect legal consideration. Therefore, once we do enter into our executive session, we will adjourn a meeting from there. So if the board would consider going into an executive session, can we entertain a motion to enter into executive?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Poll the board, please.
Alderman Barker,
Aye.
Alderman Spencer,
Aye.
Alderman Holt,
Hi.
Alderman Lehman.
Aye.
Votes unanimous. That does conclude our open public portion of the meeting this evening. Have a good evening. Thanks for being here.